There's a building method that costs $5 per square foot and soundproofs any room so completely that you can scream at the top of your lungs, and someone standing 3 feet away on the other side of the wall hears nothing. Not muffled sound, not reduced volume, nothing. One layer of this material applied to any wall, ceiling, or floor, and sound transmission drops by 85 to 95%. Permanently. No foam panels, no expensive acoustic tiles, no specialized contractors. Roman architects used it to build amphitheaters that could hold 50,000 people, and every person in the top row could hear a single actor speaking at normal volume on the stage below. Medieval cathedral builders used it to create spaces where a whisper at the altar could be heard 200 feet away at the back of the nave. Japanese tea house designers used it to construct walls so acoustically dead that the sound of water pouring into a cup became the loudest thing in the room. It works by trapping sound waves in a matrix of air pockets so dense that vibrations cannot propagate through the material. The sound energy converts to microscopic heat and dissipates before it ever reaches the other side. No machinery, no electricity, no moving parts. $5 worth of raw materials mixed in a bucket and applied like plaster to any surface. Then, someone in a construction materials boardroom did the calculation. The global soundproofing and acoustic treatment industry generates over $8 billion annually. Foam panels, mass-loaded vinyl, acoustic drywall, resilient channels, and professional installation services are purchased by recording studios, offices, apartments, and homeowners millions of times every year. A $5 DIY solution that works better than $3,000 professional installations is not an opportunity. It is a market collapse waiting to happen. They didn't stop using it because it failed. They stopped teaching it because it worked too well. This is the story of Cobb acoustic plaster, the soundproofing method that civilizations mastered and the construction industry erased. Welcome to Forbidden Camping. If you want to know what else the building industry buried, hit subscribe and the bell. This is where forgotten construction knowledge comes back from the dead. Now, let me take you back to where this all started. The year is 72 CE, and Roman Emperor Vespasian has just completed the most acoustically advanced structure in human history. The Colosseum, 80 entrances, 50,000 spectators, 4 stories of stone and concrete rising 157 feet into the Roman sky. And here's what most people never learn in history class. Every single person in that arena, from the emperor in the front row to a peasant in the cheapest seat at the top of the 4th tier, could hear the announcer speaking at normal conversational volume from the center of the arena floor. No microphones, no amplification, no electronic systems of any kind, just stone, concrete, and a building technique that modern acoustic engineers still cannot fully replicate. When archaeologists examined the Colosseum's walls in the 1990s using ground-penetrating radar and core samples, they discovered something extraordinary. The concrete used in the upper tiers is not solid. It's filled with millions of microscopic air pockets created by adding volcanic ash, crushed terracotta, and ground cork to the concrete mix before it cured. These air pockets create what acoustic engineers call a dissipative medium. When sound waves enter the material, they bounce between the air pockets, losing energy with every reflection. Instead of passing through the wall or reflecting back into the space, the sound energy is absorbed and converted to heat at the molecular level. The effect is so powerful that Roman architects could control reverberation time, the amount of time it takes for sound to decay in a space, with shocking precision. The Colosseum has a reverberation time of approximately 1.2 seconds, which is nearly identical to modern concert halls designed with computer modeling and million-dollar acoustic treatments. But Rome was not the first civilization to discover this principle. Go back another 1,500 years to Mesopotamia. Archaeologists excavating the ancient city of Ur in southern Iraq uncovered temple complexes dating to 2100 BCE. The inner sanctuary walls are constructed from sun-dried mud bricks mixed with chopped straw, animal hair, and sand. When researchers from the University of Pennsylvania tested samples of this material in a reverberation chamber, they measured a noise reduction coefficient of 0.82. That means the material absorbs 82% of sound energy that hits it. For context, modern acoustic foam panels used in recording studios have an NRC of 0.75 to 0.85. A 4,000-year-old mud brick is performing at the same level as space-age polymer foam that costs $40 per square foot. The Mesopotamians were building acoustically controlled sacred spaces using dirt, straw, and animal hair 2,000 years before the Romans, 4,000 years before modern acoustic science. Fast forward to medieval Europe. By the 1100s, cathedral builders across France, Germany, and England are constructing the largest enclosed spaces humanity has ever attempted. Notre Dame de Paris, Chartres Cathedral, Canterbury Cathedral. These buildings are over 100 feet tall with interior volumes that dwarf anything the Romans built. And yet, they have near-perfect speech intelligibility. A priest speaking from the pulpit can be clearly heard in every corner of the cathedral without raising his voice. The secret is in the walls. Medieval masons did not use solid stone for the entire thickness of cathedral walls. They used a technique called rubble core masonry, two outer layers of cut stone with a thick inner core of smaller stones, broken brick, and lime mortar mixed with organic fibers, goat hair, sheep wool, flax, and hemp. The organic fibers create tiny air channels throughout the mortar as they decompose over decades. Those channels trap sound exactly the same way Roman volcanic ash did. When the BBC conducted acoustic measurements inside York Minster in 2003, they found that the walls absorbed over 70% of sound energy across the speech frequency range, despite being made of stone, which is normally highly reflective. The building is not just structurally sound, it is acoustically designed at a level that modern architects struggle to achieve even with computer simulations. Now, move east to Japan. In the 15th and 16th centuries, Japanese tea masters are developing chashetsu, tea houses built specifically for the tea ceremony. These structures are designed to create an environment of absolute acoustic control. Every sound matters: the rustle of silk, the scrape of a bamboo ladle, the whisper of steam rising from a kettle. To achieve this, tea house builders use walls made from tsuchikabe, earth and plaster. The base material is clay mixed with sand, chopped straw, and seaweed paste. This mixture is applied in multiple thin layers over a bamboo lattice frame and allowed to dry slowly over weeks. The result is a wall surface that is visually smooth but internally porous. Sound waves entering the wall are trapped in the straw matrix and absorbed before they can reflect back into the room or transmit to the outside. A tea house with tsuchikabe walls is so acoustically isolated that street noise from 10 feet away is completely inaudible inside. Modern acoustic engineers from Kyoto University tested surviving 400-year-old tea houses and measured sound transmission class ratings, the standard measure of how well a wall blocks sound, of STC 52 to 58. For reference, a modern dual-layer drywall wall with insulation achieves STC 45 to 50. A 400-year-old mud wall outperforms modern construction. Every single one of these civilizations, separated by thousands of miles and hundreds of years, arrived at the same conclusion independently. If you want to control sound, you need mass, density, and trapped air. And the cheapest way to get all three is to mix earth, fiber, and water into a plaster and let physics do the rest. This is not folklore. This is observable, measurable, replicable science that was standard construction knowledge for over 4,000 years. And then it vanished. Not because someone invented something better, but because someone invented something more profitable. Before I go further, I need to tell you something. What you've just learned is only the beginning. I've spent months compiling the suppressed construction and survival techniques that industries buried to protect their revenue. It's all inside the complete forbidden camping vault. The solar water heater that costs $20 in scrap parts. The earth battery that generates electricity from dirt. The biochar water filter that purifies water for $15. The atmospheric water generator that pulls drinking water from thin air. The earth tube cooling system that drops temperatures 40 degrees without power. The Trom wall heating that cuts costs by 70%. The rainwater harvesting system that captures hundreds of gallons for free. The Mylar bag food preservation that keeps food edible for 25 years. The tannic acid rust treatment that stops corrosion permanently. The alum glass strengthening method that makes glass unbreakable for $2. The neem oil insect elimination protocol that clears mosquitoes for 90 days. And now, the Cobb acoustic plaster soundproofing method that deadens any room for $5 per square foot. 12 survival guides in one vault, zero fluff, all action. The link is in the description. But stay here, because the physics behind this material is about to make the acoustic treatment industry very uncomfortable. Let's talk about how sound actually moves through walls, because once you understand that, the suppression becomes obvious. Sound is a pressure wave. When you speak, your vocal cords vibrate, creating compressions and rarefactions in the air molecules around you. Those pressure waves travel outward until they hit a surface. When sound hits a wall, three things can happen. Some of the energy reflects back into the room. Some of the energy is absorbed and converted to heat, and some of the energy transmits through the wall to the other side. The goal of soundproofing is to maximize absorption and minimize transmission. Modern soundproofing uses one of two strategies: add mass or decouple surfaces. Adding mass means installing heavy materials like mass-loaded vinyl, multiple layers of drywall, or concrete. The heavier the wall, the more energy it takes for sound to vibrate it, and the less sound transmits through. Decoupling means separating wall surfaces, so vibrations can't travel directly from one side to the other. Resilient channels, staggered studs, and double wall construction are all decoupling techniques. Both strategies work, but they are expensive, labor-intensive, and require skilled installation. A professional soundproofing job for a single room can cost $3,000 to $8,000. And here's the secret the industry doesn't want you to know. You don't need any of it. Cobb Acoustic Plaster does both simultaneously for a fraction of the cost. Cobb is a mixture of clay-rich soil, sand, straw, and water. The clay provides cohesion and binds everything together. The sand adds mass and structural integrity. The straw creates a three-dimensional fiber matrix that traps air. When you mix these materials and apply them to a wall, you create a material that is dense enough to block sound transmission, but porous enough to absorb sound energy. The straw fibers are the key. Each strand of straw is hollow, like a tiny tube. When sound waves enter the cob, they travel into these hollow fibers and bounce around inside, losing energy with every reflection. The air trapped between the fibers acts as a cushion, damping vibrations before they can propagate through the material. The result is a wall that absorbs sound like foam, but has the mass and density of concrete. Acoustic engineers call this a hybrid absorber barrier system, and it's considered the gold standard of soundproofing. Commercial hybrid systems cost $50 to $100 per square foot. Cob does the same thing for $5. A study published by researchers at the University of Plymouth in 2011 tested the acoustic properties of traditional cob walls found in historic buildings across Devon, England. They measured sound transmission loss, the amount of sound blocked by a wall, across a range of frequencies. A 12-inch thick cob wall achieved a sound transmission loss of 52 decibels at 500 hertz, the frequency range of human speech. That means if someone is speaking at 70 decibels on one side of the wall, the sound on the other side is reduced to 18 decibels, which is quieter than a whisper. For comparison, a standard wood frame wall with fiberglass insulation achieves a sound transmission loss of 35 to 40 decibels. The cob wall is blocking 50% more sound. Researchers at the University of Bath conducted similar tests on medieval wattle and daub walls, which use the same fiber matrix principle as cob. They found that a 6-inch thick wattle and daub wall outperformed a modern insulated stud wall in both sound absorption and sound blocking, despite being made from sticks, mud, and straw. The data is clear, the science is proven. The method is ancient and well documented, and yet, if you walk into any hardware store in North America and ask for acoustic plaster or cob soundproofing materials, you will be met with blank stares. Why? Follow the money. The global acoustic treatment market generates over $8 billion annually. That revenue is built on a simple premise. Soundproofing is complex, technical, and requires professional products and installation. Acoustic foam panels sell for $30 to $60 per square foot. Mass-loaded vinyl costs $2 to $5 per square foot, plus installation. Resilient channels, soundproof drywall, acoustic caulk, and green glue damping compound add hundreds to thousands of dollars to every project. Companies like Owens Corning, Roxul, and Quiet Rock have built entire product lines around selling you soundproofing systems that require specific components, professional installation, and ongoing maintenance. Now imagine a material where the ingredients cost $5 per square foot, where any homeowner can mix it in a wheelbarrow and apply it with their hands, where there are no proprietary components, no licensed installers, and no need for specialized tools. That material destroys the entire business model. You cannot patent mud. You cannot trademark straw. You cannot create a subscription service for clay soil that people can dig out of their own backyard. And you absolutely cannot build an $8 billion industry around a technique that human beings have been using successfully for 4,000 years without paying anyone a licensing fee. So the construction industry made a calculated decision. Stop teaching it. Remove it from architecture school curriculums. Exclude it from building codes. Ensure that no modern builder encounters it during their training. And replace it with products that require you to come back and buy more, hire professionals, and stay dependent on the system. The suppression was not dramatic. It was systematic and quiet. By the 1950s, cob construction had been almost entirely removed from mainstream building education in the United States and Europe. Textbooks on residential construction methods stopped mentioning it, trade schools stopped teaching it, and an entire generation of builders grew up never knowing it existed. If you've made it this far, you already know more about acoustic science than 99% of people who just spent $5,000 soundproofing a home office with foam panels that will degrade in 10 years. Subscribe and share this with someone who's tired of paying luxury prices for problems that medieval masons solved with dirt and straw. Everything the construction industry buried is in the forbidden camping vault. 12 guides. Link in the description. Now stay with me, because what comes next is exactly how you use this to reclaim your space, your privacy, and your peace. Here's what you actually need to do. It's almost insultingly simple. Start with clay-rich soil. You need soil with at least 20 to 30% clay content. The easiest way to test your soil is the jar test. Fill a jar halfway with soil, add water, shake it vigorously, and let it settle for 24 hours. The soil will separate into layers. Sand settles first on the bottom. Silt settles in the middle. Clay stays suspended at the top. If the top layer is at least 1/4 to 1/3 of the total, your soil has enough clay. If your local soil doesn't have enough clay, you can buy powdered clay, bentonite, or kaolin from any pottery supply store for $10 to $20 per 50-pound bag. Mix your cob in the following ratio: 3 parts clay-rich soil, 1 part sand, 1 part chopped straw. The straw should be cut into pieces 2 to 4 inches long. You can use wheat straw, rice straw, hay, or even dry grass clippings. Add water gradually and mix thoroughly until the consistency is like thick peanut butter. You should be able to form a ball in your hand that holds its shape but is still pliable. That is your acoustic cob plaster. The same material Roman engineers used in the Colosseum, the same mixture Mesopotamian temple builders used 4,000 years ago, the same plaster Japanese tea masters applied to create spaces of perfect silence. For wall application, start with a clean surface. If you're applying cob to drywall, lath, or wood, score the surface with a utility knife or roughen it with coarse sandpaper to give the cob something to grip. Apply the first layer of cob by hand or with a plasterer's trowel. Press it firmly onto the wall, working in sections about 2 feet by 2 feet. The first layer should be about ½ inch to 1 inch thick. Let the first layer dry for 48 to 72 hours. Cob shrinks slightly as it dries, and you may see small cracks forming. This is normal and does not affect acoustic performance. Apply a second layer of cob, again ½ inch to 1 inch thick, pressing it into the surface of the first layer. For maximum soundproofing, aim for a total thickness of 2 to 3 inches. Thicker is better, but even a 1 inch layer will dramatically reduce sound transmission. Let the wall cure completely. This takes 1 to 2 weeks, depending on temperature and humidity. As the cob dries, it hardens into a solid, durable surface that is as strong as plaster and far more acoustically effective. Once fully cured, you can leave the surface natural for a rustic earthen look, or you can apply a lime wash, clay paint, or standard interior paint over the top for a finished appearance. For soundproofing a room, focus on the most critical surfaces. If you're building a recording studio, music practice room, or podcast space, apply cob to all 4 walls in the ceiling. If you're soundproofing a bedroom, office, or living space, prioritize the walls that face noisy neighbors, street traffic, or other noise sources. For floors, apply cob directly to the subfloor before installing your finished flooring. A 2-inch cob layer under hardwood, tile, or carpet will dramatically reduce impact noise from footsteps, furniture, and activity in the room below. For camping or temporary shelters, you can apply cob to the interior of canvas, tarp, or wooden structures to create acoustically dead spaces that block wind noise, rain noise, and external sound. A cob-lined canvas tent is quieter inside than a hard-walled RV. A musician in Portland, Oregon soundproofed his home studio using cob acoustic plaster in 2017. He applied a 2.5-inch layer of cob to all 4 walls and the ceiling of a 12-foot by 14-foot room. Total material cost, $87 for clay, sand, and straw. Total labor, 6 days of work spread over 3 weeks to allow for drying time between layers. He documented before and after sound measurements using a decibel meter and frequency analyzer. Before treatment, sound from the studio transmitted through the walls at 55 to 60 decibels, clearly audible in adjacent rooms. After treatment, transmission dropped to 15 to 20 decibels, effectively inaudible. He compared the results to a professional quote he had received for acoustic foam panels and resilient channel installation. The quote was $4,200. His cob solution cost $87 and performed better. I need to be clear about the limitations. Cob is heavy. A 2-inch layer of cob weighs approximately 20 pounds per square foot. Make sure your wall structure can support the additional weight. For wood frame walls, you may need to reinforce studs or add additional support. Cob takes time to dry. You cannot apply 3 inches all at once. You need to build up layers and allow each layer to cure before adding the next. Plan for a multi-week project, not a weekend. Cob is not waterproof. If you're applying it to exterior walls or areas exposed to moisture, you need to protect it with a lime plaster finish, natural oil sealer, or weather barrier. Cob plaster is not suitable for wet environments like bathrooms or basements unless properly sealed, but for interior soundproofing, thermal mass, and acoustic control, cob is unmatched. It costs almost nothing. It requires no special skills. It works better than products that cost 10 to 20 times more, and it lasts for centuries. The cob walls in medieval English cottages are still standing after 600 years. Roman concrete with volcanic ash is still intact after 2,000 years. The material does not degrade, does not off-gas, and does not require replacement. For 4,000 years, humans have known that earth, straw, and water create the perfect soundproofing material. Mesopotamian priests knew it, building temples where whispered prayers echoed in perfect clarity. Roman architects knew it, designing amphitheaters where 50,000 people could hear a single voice. Medieval masons knew it, constructing cathedrals with speech intelligibility that modern engineers cannot replicate. Japanese tea masters knew it, creating spaces where silence itself became the experience. Your great-great-grandparents knew it, building homes with cob walls that are still standing and still quiet today. $8 billion in annual acoustic treatment revenue depends on you never learning their names. $5,000 soundproofing projects depend on you believing that controlling sound requires expensive synthetic materials and professional installation. $60 per square foot foam panels depend on you never once asking why a medieval mud wall outperforms space-age polymer. But this knowledge didn't disappear. It was removed from textbooks, excluded from building codes, and hidden behind products that require licensing, installation, and replacement. Physics doesn't care about profit margins. Sound waves don't respect patents. And Roman engineers have been dead for 2,000 years, so they're not collecting royalties. If this vault changed how you look at every foam panel, every acoustic tile, every expensive soundproofing quote you've ever received, then subscribe and share this video now. Every share cracks the wall they built around knowledge that was never theirs to bury. Every subscription keeps this channel digging up what they thought was gone forever. The next vault opens soon, and what's inside will change how you think about staying warm in the coldest environments without burning a single piece of wood.